Hello, folks. Welcome to the MMA podcast. My name is Dustin Jones, and I'm joined by a familiar face, familiar voice, Dr. Shelby Blankenship, physical therapist. She teaches in the older adult division, and she operates Southern Grit Physical Therapy and Wellness down in the beautiful Hendersonville, Tennessee area. Shelby, thank you for hopping on.
Yes. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so I wanted to have you on because you have created an amazing practice gym community down there in Hendersonville, and you've done everything, I feel. And a lot of it you've done yourself, and you have a lot of experience, a lot of, lessons learned through a lot of effort. And I'd love to
A lot
just
of
pick your
tears
brain because
cried.
a lot of tears cried, right? I think a lot of folks will see you as an inspiration as well. But I'd love to just pick your brain on Southern Grit. So would you mind just kind of sharing kind of how things started, and then what
Sure.
does Southern Grit look like now, like today in April
Yeah.
2026?
So we started off obviously as Stave Off when we were partnered with Christina Previtt. Long story short, there was a lot of medical problems that I had, medical problems that my family had, and so it was a little bit of a tumultuous time. It was probably the least efficient rollout of any company that has probably ever been.
What year was that?
That was in 2022. It
Okay.
was November, December of 2022. I had just some background. I had worked for a local hospital before that, and then I had quit my job, obviously, to open this. And right when we opened, I got really, really sick and ended up being in the hospital a couple times. And so it was a little bit of a hard start, but we made it through. The biggest thing that we were trying to do is do all our own stuff at the beginning to kind of see what we needed to like filter out to other people and what we could just do in house. I think sometimes, especially when it comes to Medicare, the fear of the unknown is really the biggest problem. Is people just don't, they've never done it before. It's not stuff we learn in school as far as like how to bill, how to get credentialed, how to, do any of those kinds of things. And thankfully there's lots of resources and like Facebook groups out there to kind of help at least filter you in the right direction. But I mean, ultimately you have to be the one who puts in the work. So there was a lot of tears and frustration trying to figure out how to market and advertise and do Google ads and Facebook ads. And from my experience, those have not been as fruitful as word of mouth. So if there's any words to wise, I would say just make a really good quality product and then figure out how to market after that.
Yeah. Get good, not
Did
busy.
that and then yeah, exactly. Get really good, especially if you've already been like somewhat established as far as like people know who you are and will send you people to kind of start out. That's really helpful. I had worked at the local hospital and we had an outpatient clinic as well. And so they would send me the people who I would say are more higher level or they thought were higher level, that needed more like the barbells, the dumbbells, and didn't necessarily need as much of the like hospital specific equipment, like lift assist
Yeah.
things and those kinds of situations. So we did that. It took us like 6 months to get Medicare credentialed. It was like the worst process ever. I had to call constantly, and not
Let's
this is not to dismay anybody,
Can we
but
dig
it
into
was
that? Because
terrible.
I am in that process right now with Hyphen, where
Yes.
we've been seeing folks since January, and we've not been paid. At the time of this recording, it's April 22nd,
Yes.
26. So we
Yeah.
haven't been paid yet for those services. We just now got our
Yep.
kind of Medicare enrollment date, which was
Yep.
just that whole process and the ambiguity and the difficulty with nailing information down. What would you
Yes.
say to someone that's maybe thinking about starting their own practice credentialing with Medicare, or even like to Shelby? Like, what would you say to Shelby now, to the previous Shelby when you were going through that process? Like, what words of wisdom or
I
perspective would you give that person?
would say, unfortunately, while you might be very good at your job, there are many people who don't care about their job. Like it's unfortunate because like we get so hounded as therapists and are so focused on like I don't want to get audited and I don't want to make sure I don't commit fraud and I don't want to do all these things. And then the people that we have to like report to or get communicate with when it comes to Medicare, sometimes they don't like it's just a job to them. So like their response time is on their own dime, and it's just not as the lack of urgency is very felt when it's like a hurry up and wait on our end, and then it's like, oh, well, that will take 30 to 90 days to process. The difference between 30 days and 90 days is a big time difference.
Yes.
And that part, I would just be like, you're gonna have to be almost like Sherlock Holmes, like constantly like turning every rock over to try to make sure, like, don't just wait on them to give you a response, like hound them. It's almost like when, unfortunately, when we got our like PT license and you're waiting for the license to come in and you just have to call and call and call and call to see where it's at. That's what it felt like. Because it was, if you wait, like if you're like, oh, well, maybe I'll give them like 3 weeks. Like they may be like, oh, why didn't you call us earlier? We don't even have you on our radar. So I would just say hound the crap out of them. Be the person that you absolutely hate. Be a Karen.
Yeah, the Karen, be the squeaky wheel, right? So
Yes.
in your experience, so we have the EMR that we're using is taking care, and that's in quotes, taking care of credentialing for us, which as you know how that goes, they don't care as much as we do about it.
Correct.
So
yeah, I mean,
the
lack of urgency is felt.
Right. The lack of urgency. So they're basically functioning as a middleman. And we have now kind of said, all right, we're going to take care of this, and we're the squeaky wheel now. Yeah. There's so many acronyms, right? So many, all the different initials. But that individual with Medicare, that is kind of our go-to person. So we do have a contact that's kind of in charge of like when the site visit happens and the enrollment dates and whatnot. And we have been hounding that person and getting some progress now. Was that the case for you? Like, was it that one point of contact that you had, or were you just blowing up?
It was just me on the phone all the time. And I feel like and what was hard is, you fill out the quote unquote paperwork, right? Like you have to have your own NPI, you have to have your business NPI, and you have to have all these things beforehand. That it's not as simple as like you get a building, you open the doors and you go. Like you got to have so many things like in process, and you have to have them in a certain order. And so I didn't know that. So when we started the build out, because it was just a shell of our building. When we started the build out, I was like, okay, I'm going to be like proactive about this. I'm going to go ahead and put in my Medicare credentialing stuff now so that once we're open, it's ready to go. You can't do that. You have to be completely 100% like ready to, like your doors are open to even start the credentialing process. And that to me was one of those where you're like, how are you supposed to know that? Like so many other, I think, things in life, like you can kind of do them like ahead of time and be like, this is our anticipated start date. With Medicare, it's like, if you're not ready to go, like you can't fill out anything. And so that was a lesson learned that I just didn't know. I mean, they don't give us like a rhetoric or anything when it comes to this stuff in school. So it's like, you don't know what you don't know.
Right. And for context, you have to, for folks that are thinking about this, you have to have that site visit. You have to be able to pass that site visit, when you're starting this application. And the site visit is kind of a joke, to be honest. Like, they just kind of drive by and see that you're actually
a building and legit.
Right. A building, and you've got some information kind of on your storefront. It could be a little piece of paper that you printed and hung. But you have to be ready for that to go with this application. But from my understanding, did you start treating right away, but you had to back bill for that?
Yes. So I started treating pretty much like a few days after I got out of the hospital. And so when I think about it now, it's so stupid. But so I started treating, and then so you have to wait till you get Medicare credentialed, and that took us until like April or May. And that was me like hounding them constantly about doing this, because I would say in theory it should take about like 60 days. Like that's kind of like the sweet spot. If it's not done by then, something's wrong. Like something's not. Some paperwork didn't get signed or something. And then after you get Medicare credentialed, you have to get like if you don't have a clearinghouse, which we did not, because I was doing all our billing, you have to get into the billing, like you have to get that approved too, and that takes another 2, 3, 4 weeks. And it's kind of like when you fill out a form, like when you sign like your iTunes Apple thing, where you're reading it and you're like, I don't know what the half this stuff means.
Yeah, except
I don't know this verbiage. I mean, ChatGPT wasn't really a thing now. Now I would just probably input it in there and it would tell me what it means. But
yeah.
So then you have to fill out all these forms, and it's kind of like, what is your, like, and it has like weird numbers, like 652 of P, and you're like, I don't know what that is. And so it's kind of one of those things, like you have to ask somebody else who does it, or do it wrong, which is what I did. Do it wrong 5 times, and then you eventually figure out what it is correctly. And then you finally get the, like, being able to actually input billing. And then you got to figure out how to bill. And it was just like so many like lessons learned. Now it's like so easy, but I did it all wrong so many times that now I know what I'm doing. But so once you kind of get into that, then you can start the billing. Well, I mean, again, it's like things like, when do you use GP? When do you use the CQ modifiers? 59, KX, like that kind of stuff, where like so many EMRs might automatically have it built in. Like the one I had when I worked at the hospital did. The one I have now does not. And so I had to like figure out when to do those things. Once I got it figured out, it was like, now we're like 6-7 months later, and it was like, now we're getting thousands of dollars of back pay.
Yeah.
But at that time, we didn't have any of our PT income, so we were surviving off our gym income, and thankfully, like that is what held the buffer. And then, of course, I was working for Ice Physio, and that helped too. But it was just kind of one of those things, like you don't expect to make like a buttload of money like right out of the gate, but it is nice when you actually have some income coming in steadily. And so the gym really saved us. And I will say, especially if you're going to be isolated to like a certain population, especially like a Medicare population, where you have to go through so many steps to get your money coming in, like you have to add something that is cash in some shape or capacity, whether it's a gym, whether it's personal training, whether it's like wellness stuff. Like you got to have something, or else you're not going to be able to survive, or you've got to have a lot of like back end income already buffered in.
Yeah. Your capital that you'll need on hand significantly goes up to be able to handle that gap in pay. The fitness side, that's absolutely huge, right? Because you can start to build that community, complements the physical therapy side, right? Like you probably had a bunch of patients that started in the gym, or vice versa, right?
Yeah, totally.
And then they joined the gym.
Yeah.
What would you say to folks, or is there anything that you do differently to weather the storm of the pay gap from PT? I mean, you already mentioned the importance of the fitness side. Is there anything else like that comes to mind to like ease that period of time?
I mean, I would say, like, I know some people had, like, when they do this, they have like a PRN job. I mean, thankfully I have a spouse who has a very stable income. Like he's a Metro firefighter, so it's very regular as far as income goes. But I would say if you are not comfortable with the fitness side, you need to find a niche or something that makes you distinguishable from everybody else. So like I know when I'm not doing like stuff here, I'm usually I like teaching. So whether it's with Ice Physio or whether it is doing like community or lunch and learns or those kinds of things, like go ahead, and that kind of marketing is so much more beneficial for this like 50 plus crowd. They want to see your face. They want a recognizable human to be in front of. They don't want just ads, because it's like spam, it's like emails, it's too much, and it doesn't feel personable. They are so notorious. I always say they almost feel like they're like the children of the generation, where they just get passed around from person to person to person, and it's just not, there's no like actual touch points where people feel seen and heard. So if you can distinguish yourself that way, where you're like, I will, commit an hour to being in this, person's presence or these people's presence. Church groups are huge. If you can get find those niches where you can get in front, because if they have one person that will go to you, they will get that whole group to go
Yeah.
to you because they were like, I swear by Shelby, you have to go see, you know, like,
Yeah.
and then they like shun the people who don't.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny. But you have to find, you know, those people that will kind of be your marketing advocates that is not just you. Because it, you know, like, I think as PTs, we're not always the best salesmen, except in acute care. I feel like we had to be really good salesmen because nobody wanted to see us and nobody wanted to work with us ever. And so you have to figure out a way to where you can sleep at night and not feel like, you know, like a dirty car salesman or whatever. So doing those like free educations or going to your senior center or doing things that are beneficial to get your face in front of people is really the way to go. Now, if you can get paid, even better. Have to start somewhere.
Yeah. And you were able to get paid through that fitness avenue. And I can only imagine how many folks signed up after hearing you talk about osteoporosis or whatever, you know, the topic that they care about.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you got through that really difficult phase. Money was starting to come in. And so at the time you were doing all the billing. Are you still submitting all the billing? Okay.
Yeah. So we've been in business about 4 years now. And I would say it is the first thing I will love to let go. I will love to have, like, honestly, somebody who is 50 plus and retired and just wants like 10, 15 hours a week that I could have do this. But right now it's like, I would say when we first started, it was almost like 25 as far as income ratio for fitness being the primary, and then we had PT. And now it's flipped. So now it's the majority of it is PT and 25% of it is more the fitness side. And so if I can do the billing now pretty quickly, like I do it daily, where I will go in, do all my Medicare stuff. UHC, UMR has their own. Blue Cross Blue Shield has their own. And that's the hard part, is that each of them have their own type. And so we only got credentialed with Medicare. And so the other ones are out of network. And so doing like the prior authorizations and all that crap and figuring out, can I actually see this person and the insurance will actually pay it? Versus like an HMO program where it's basically you're out of network, they're not going to pay anything, you just do cash. And that took a little bit of some hard lessons learned where people gave me wrong insurance information and I had no access to my Medicare stuff yet because we were still getting credentialed, so I had no way to check to see if it was legit. And then we ended up getting screwed on the money because they're like, oh, you know, and they just ghost us or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, it's really beneficial to do it yourself because you don't have that, you know, I don't know if it's 5% or whatever the percentage is that they take off the top, but you can run into those headaches of people being dishonest and people, you know, there's sucky people in every generation. So it's not just it's not just my generation or below. It's every generation. And so you have to kind of just be mindful of like, there are going to be some people who suck and there's going to be people who just don't know. Like they just don't know what they have. Right. So you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. But if you can do it yourself, it's really empowering to know like, okay, I know when to let go of this versus being like, I have no other option. So if the prices go up at a place, like it is what it is versus I could just take it back if I needed to. So I would say, from a hiring standpoint, that's going to be my next tier of hiring. So, you know, I hired obviously people to help me like do the work as far as like PTAs, PTs, fitness professionals. And then my next hiring was accounting because I freaking hate doing QuickBooks. And then the next one is going to definitely be the billing side / like prior auth side, where if I didn't have to do that, my life would just be so much easier because I almost need somebody who is like detective work because every now and then you get a supplement that slips through, you get Blue Cross Blue Shield who forgot to pay you or they didn't receive it or, you know, whatever. And so you have to kind of babysit, which is a little annoying.
Yeah. So let's dig into some of the choice around what insurances you work with or go in network with versus not. So for folks that are wanting to do something like this, you know, Medicare is obviously like you got to get credentialed with Medicare.
Yeah.
if you're going to offer physical therapy. But then there's going to be a lot of folks that have these supplemental plans depending on where you live. Like where we are, we have a big like Toyota manufacturing plant. So there's tons of folks that have that kind of retirement, insurance. So some of those things, depending on your area, it may make a lot of sense. Like, hey, I may want to get in network with this particular insurance if it's super prevalent. But could you explain how do you handle these conversations to minimize kind of the work of like, checking benefits and authorization and all this type of stuff? Like, are you saying, here's my cash rate. If your insurance doesn't cover this, here's what you will be paid, and sign this paper? Like, how does that situation pan out for y'all?
So what I've done, and I've changed it, like at the very beginning, we did not put our prices online because I was not sure if I wanted to keep them or if I wanted, to change them at any point. So now that we've kind of been established for a few years, I kind of have a price point where I feel good about this works for us, and it's not me just constantly changing the website. Because there's nothing worse than the website saying one thing and you're saying another thing, and they're like, what's going on here? So when we kind of picked what insurance, we did traditional Medicare because it is the least headache. There's no prior authorizations. Basically, you just have to monitor, one, do they actually have Medicare, which they're on their, once you get the access to the billing website, it has a thing where it will tell you, yes, they are traditional Medicare, or no, they have Medicare Advantage. And then you can see like where they're at on their deductible and if they owe that and those kinds of things. So it's very easy. You just input their stuff and then you send it off, and then very consistently, about 2 weeks, maybe 14 to 16 days, you will get paid that 80%. So it's a very consistent cash flow if you will input your stuff consistently. When you do other programs like Blue Cross Blue Shield, UMR, those kinds of Cigna, or it's now HealthSpring, the problem that I had, now I will say I am out of network, so their incentive to probably pay me is probably lower. But it is a lag time that is much longer. So it can take sometimes a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks to get the full payment that you're expecting. And that's if they do it correctly on the first rate. So now that, again, I'm out of network, so I don't know if you're in network, if maybe they're a little bit more prompted to pay you a little bit quicker or more quickly. Yeah. So that part has just been a little eye-opening. We did the Medicare side, and then I had thought about doing like Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee because it's very, very popular around here. A lot of people have it. And so I reached out about getting credentialed with them. Well, they will only limit a certain amount of people to be credentialed with Blue Cross Blue Shield Tennessee for the Medicare Advantage side. And we didn't get selected. And it has to do, like, there's a lot of like star results. Like there's a lot of like bigger names around here. And I think that's probably the people that they tend to go with versus like a small mom and pop shop. Not saying that you can't, it's just versus us. And it's maybe just because we're in Nashville and it's a little bit more medically dense as far as people goes. And so we didn't get selected, but it was funny. They were like, well, you can't take Medicare Advantage benefits, so you could take regular just Blue Cross Blue Shield if you wanted to. And I was like, well, that's not what I want, but whatever. So we didn't end up getting a contract with them. But the thing when you do these contracts with these people is the pricing of what they give you, you have to make sure it still makes sense. Because sometimes they'll be like, yeah, we'll give you like 80 people, but instead of making, in theory, $100 an hour, you're only going to make 85. And so you kind of have to, like balance like how much of it is a volume, like you're just trying to get input versus like if everything was going right, would you still take these people? Because it's not, and that's where, like, for us, we've kind of still settled on just staying with traditional Medicare because we're going to end up getting paid the same as we would with Medicare, but there might be a few more hoops to jump through with, like, prior authorization or taking co-pays or co-insurance or whatever it might be. Whereas if I decided to go in network, I might end up getting a reduction in price, especially if you end up going with like an HMO program where they might only pay you like $70. And I'm like, I'm not going to reduce the amount I'm going to make just to get 10 more people in the door. Because ultimately, the idea is that we keep growing, and we've grown every year without having to change our cash rate, so to speak, by going in network. And so you kind of have to balance of like, how badly do you really need the money right now, and how much of it is you have a lot of quality and other ways to make more money, but it's not necessarily, I don't want to say cheapening, but cheapening your PT services.
Yeah.
And I know some people will, with those people, instead of doing like, we block for an hour, and that's just a choice that I've made. We might change it one day to 45 minutes, but right now that just makes sense for us. I know some people, when they have certain insurances, they will only see them for 30 minutes because of that price discrepancy.
Yeah. 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 And you start to see why some of the, bigger clinics operate the way they do.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, I get it. I totally get why they're like double booking and triple booking people, because they can get away with it and they can make a lot of money, but it's the quality. Like, people don't want that. Like, I can't tell you how many people come in here and they're like, I do not want to be with a tech. I do not want to be with 4 other people. How do you know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do? Like, they really, like we talked about, like the foster kid mentality. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want somebody who gives a crap. And I mean, ultimately, like, that's how you end up getting people to transition more into that personal training and fitness side, when you have them on the PT side where they're having to quote unquote pay nothing because they feel invested in.
Right. Yep. Yeah. They have a therapist instead of, I go to a clinic and I don't know who I'm working with.
Correct.
I work with Shelby.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So the out of network folks what's that conversation like when you say, okay, you have this insurance, I'm out of network, here's our cash rate, you'll be on the hook for whatever, your insurance doesn't pay. Like, what's that conversation look like?
Usually so you have to do with those people, you have to do what they call a good faith estimate. And so what I do, I have like a little template. And usually the most common one that we get is Blue Cross Blue Shield. And so it's 50% consistently for us. So they pay 50%, and then you send the rest off to Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then they pay the remainder 50%. And so I just tell them like, hey, I usually have them send me a picture of their insurance card, because they'll tell me they have a PPO program, and then they come in and it's an HMO, and you don't want people to have to come in, especially if they have to drive, and it's a big deal for them to drive, If you can do it over the phone, all the better. And so we'll have that. I'll look at their card. I will double check their credentials there's a program called Availity that allows you to kind of check a lot of this stuff if they're not a Medicare person. That just kind of gives you an idea of like how much they're going to pay. Now, Hendersonville is a pretty affluent area. Usually price is not the big thing. Sometimes it is though. And so I always tell them like, hey, just want to let you know, you will be responsible for 50% of your payment at each session. The first initial evaluation, we do it based on our cash rate, the 50%. So it overestimates a little bit, so then they end up paying a little bit less. So like, oh my gosh, like, look how great. But so we usually do like $225 is about our eval rate. So I'm like, hey, it's going to be about $100 to $115 for your initial eval. Any subsequent treatments are going to usually be around $50 to $65 because it's about $125 cash rate for us. If there is any like amount where you end up overpaying, we will reimburse your credit card or however you end up paying, or it will be applied to your next treatment. So sometimes they will pay like 50, 50, 50, and then we get the payment in, and they only end like $10 like the next one or something like that. And sometimes they're like, oh, like, I had no idea like that we would owe money. And I'm like, well, we are out of network, but we are different than other facilities in that we do only one-on-one sessions. You will be with the same person every time. There is no bouncing around between PTs and techs and those kinds of things. We have a little bit, and I always tell them, I was like, we have a little bit of a different philosophy than most therapists, like therapy clinics, in that we will get you as strong as you will let us. You will not be seeing 1 pound pink dumbbells here unless you want to. So, it's just a different style. It's a little bit more very specific to you in that all of our clinicians are very focused on this type of population. This is all we see. And when they hear that kind of like specialization, it's usually not an issue. Sometimes it still is, and then I'll be like, hey, if it financially doesn't make sense for you right now, that's totally fine. You're welcome to go any other clinician that you want to. I will just let your doctor know that you will not be coming to see us, and that's it. Now, I will say on the front end, I have had conversations with other doctors and been like, hey, we are only in network with traditional Medicare, but if you have other people, send them to us and we can have that conversation. Because sometimes, it's kind of like being a specialty clinic in like TMJ. Like it is what it is. Like you're going to that person because you just need that thing. It's the same thing with older adults. Like there's no geriatric specific clinics around here. It's kind of like you can see, from 12 to 85 in one clinic. And it's like, you're not going to see that here. Or the people who are 12, well, I'm not seeing them for sure. But if they're in the younger demographic, it's because they're paying cash and they are like, hey, they're a friend. They want to come see us, blah, 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 blah. Right. And so it's fewer and far between.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can only imagine is those conversations, would you say they're happening less in terms of like the big explanation of out of network versus in network as you got more clear on the website, or are there things you can do on the front end to where they come in and are scheduling knowing everything about what they're expected to pay?
I try, so I put our cash rate, we have we call it a price list on our website and on our front desk. And when I go teach at places, I'll have that available there. And I put on there, if you are a traditional Medicare participant, you will just owe your deductible for the year. And I put that in a little asterisk. And then below that, I say, if you are a Medicare Advantage plan, please contact us so we can see what requirements are needed. Because I would rather have the conversation with them. It allows another touch point, right? Even if they say no, it allows another touch point to kind of tell people why you do what you do. Even if they decide not to right now. I mean, finances will always be a hindrance as you get older, especially if you aren't working anymore and you're a little bit more concerned about your retirement and, those kinds of things. But it's kind of that, it helps when you do those lunch and learns or those opportunities to where you're quote unquote advertising yourself and your knowledge before you ever kind of get into the price points. Because it's who else is doing this? There's nobody else, I don't see many other clinics going out and be like, oh my gosh, look how specialized our clinic is on these subjects. They're kind of like, oh, let's talk about falls. Don't do it. That's super helpful.
Right. Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really helpful. That's a really good point. Just another opportunity to build that brand equity in their mind.
Yeah.
The last thing I'd like to hit on, I want to be respectful of your time. Shelby's got someone here in a little bit, but they come in for physical therapy. You're working with them. They love you. You're getting amazing results. You also offer personal training, and that line is obviously a little blurry with these folks.
Yes, it can be.
What is that conversation like with the patient when you are going to discharge for PT, and then they may sign up for personal training? How does that happen at Southern Grit?
So, it kind of depends on, obviously, everything. It depends on the patient. I'll give an example of a guy that we have right now. So he was actually the one I did the podcast on for MMOA a few weeks, or the one that came out this week. But he was an ICU patient a few years back. Long story short, he ended up in our clinic. He was a 4 out of 12 on his SPBB, which is extremely low.
Outpatient.
An outpatient. Dang. He was low.
Yeah.
He got up to, we just did his discharge on Monday. He got up to a 9 out of 12.
Dang.
He was hanging out between that 8 to 9 for a couple of weeks. So, we saw him a bunch. We saw him probably 40 visits from December to now. And so when people start getting into that plateau range, where it's more this is more of, hey, I just need to do this consistently, not hey, I'm continuing to progress. I have medical complexities that I need to be addressed. It's kind of they're at a really good spot where you almost say they're able to do everything they want to do, but they might not be able to do it as efficiently as they would like it to be. That's kind of the spot where I'm hey, you're doing really, really well. Either pain is gone or your functionality has drastically improved. And now we're at a point where we just need to get more fit and stay with it. That's the time where I'm hey, personal training or fitness classes is going to be the next bridge for you. Because right now it's like I'm getting to a point where I'm just creating really good programming, not necessarily we're doing like interventions where I'm having to do a lot of cueing or I'm having to kind of do a lot of education on stuff. And especially when you do teach fitness and you do it's really hard for it to not just constantly be doing this all the time.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to find that spot where they're like in that kind of plateau range where it's more of, I just need you to be doing more fitness stuff more consistently. And this guy specifically, he was like, hey, I'm really interested in the group fitness classes. And I was like, that's awesome. I would love to get you to that point. But he transitions slowly. So he getting on and off a rower is hard, is like he needs physical assistance. He can do it, but it might take a little bit extra time. And so you kind of have to be either mindful of, you need to either have a class where he would fit, which it doesn't make a class just for one person, or you need to have that personal training route where you're like, okay, our goal here for personal training is to build you up to be able to move fast enough so you can do a fitness class. And that's the transition period for us. But we also have it where a lot of people, they just don't like working out in front of other people. Like it's not a comfort for them. Mm-hmm. Or they feel like they're just not, the biggest one that we always hear is like, I feel like I'm going to slow the rest of the class down.
Yeah.
And whether that's true or not, that's where the personal training option is available. But also like, we only have 8 people per class. So it's not unheard of for us to scale and modify people's stuff when they come in. That's not a big deal. But if it's a burden for exercise for them, that's another reason why we offer that option. And I mean, for some people, it's kind of like, hey, like I graduated PT for my knees, it's total knee replacements constantly, a few months ago. But like when I go to the gym, I'm just not sure what to do. Like I don't know how to program. I don't know how to, I feel like I'm just getting on the elliptical or I'm just walking on the treadmill. And then, so that just kind of gives them like another inlet of like, hey, this is what your fitness could look like. Like this is where strength training is important. It's not just picking up 10-pound dumbbells. Like it might be, lifting a barbell. It might be doing power cleans. It might be doing, Turkish get-ups and those kinds of things, and allowing that more one-on-one attention versus like our fitness classes. It's like also about the community side of it and like doing it with your friends and pushing yourself a little bit harder because you're around people and you don't want to be the one who's like lagging by.
Right. So with your patient that's transitioning to personal training, when he's used to only paying a certain amount and then it's going to kick over to, so exponentially more per session. What's that conversation like? What typical questions or pushback do you get? How do you handle those?
Yeah, so we offer 2 options. So I'm like, hey, if you want to just try this, we offer like a per session payment, and then we also offer like a package payment, which is like a little bit of a reduced price. Mm-hmm. But we have, I took myself out of the personal training like gambit to allow some of my other staff to have more people, and honestly, I just had too much admin stuff I needed to do. Mm-hmm. And so what I do is I will transition them to another human, which is also the biggest, I would say, barrier when you open up your own clinic and you hire other people, is that everybody wants to see you. Yeah. And they're like, but I just love you. And I'm like, they're also great. I trained them. I wouldn't hire them if they sucked.
Yeah.
And that's the other barrier that probably we face when we have that conversation. It's kind of like, hey, you're at a point where you have invested from a medical standpoint into your health. Now it's time to invest into the wellness and fitness side, so you're not just like right on the barrier of like good enough. Like let's get beyond good enough. Let's get you to those trips you wanted to take on, and like this is like a longevity thing, and we need to invest in your health. And I mean, people, I think it's easy to kind of compare it to like when you go to the grocery store. It's like, hey, like, are you always buying, you buy like fruits and vegetables and things that are healthy for you, don't you? Well, why aren't you doing that from a fitness perspective? Like, it doesn't have to be constant. And so with our personal training too, we also are like, hey, even if you came once a month, like you can take a picture of your workout and just repeat that for the next couple of weeks and just sub out a couple different exercises and then come back and we'll retest things and start again. And it's, it doesn't have to be this like, you only do what you do with the personal trainer. It can allow you to have that bridge of the gap of like, maybe you do have silver sneakers and you can go to the Y, or maybe you do have, your grandson has a gym and he's willing to work out with you, but you just don't know what to do. That's where the personal training can kind of bridge that gap of like allowing you to have programming that's specific to you, but it's not so like where it has to be 2 to 3 times a week. Like it can be so variable. Whereas like with PT, you don't really have that flexibility with the way, plans of care and, insurance works. Like you have a time limit of when you have to get stuff done. And personal training or cash pay PT allows a lot more wiggle room to kind of ebb and flow with what's going on in your life. And it just allows a little bit more versatility. And that's really, I would say, like the biggest selling point for most people is like, this is to match just for you. And there's no parameters of when we have to accomplish certain things. So it's like insurance doesn't dictate whether we go on for 5 years or whether we go on for 2 weeks. It's based on you and what you want to pay and how much you want to get out of it.
I love it. And that makes it a clear difference in the service. The line becomes a lot more clear there. I love that. Well, Shelby, man, thank you. Thank you for sharing all that. The amazing community business you built, you and Corey, and all the folks involved there is really cool. If y'all are wanting to check out more of what Shelby's up to, southerngritpt.com is where you can find her clinic. I'll also drop a link to your Instagram profile as well.
Oh yeah, we have fun.
Yeah. Just thank you for sharing all that wisdom and encouragement, and I think just a dose of authenticity of the reality of what it's like to run this business that we often don't get to see, that we're just seeing folks and not very aware like what's going on in the back end. But I love that you also make it approachable. Like, this is going to suck. It's not efficient, but you can do it. And once you get
this any day of the week over the hospital.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome, Shelby. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Awesome. All right.